Show you how to use styles to change the font size and also the font face or the font type. So for this document, I'm just going to change the font of the text in here. The size is pretty straightforward, so I'll show you the style for that. So I've got those things inside paragraph tags, so I'm going to do a paragraph up here, which will apply the font size stuff that I'm about to do to all the paragraphs, right? So the property for that is pretty straightforward. It's font dash size. And again, when we're dealing with styles, sometimes the properties have a dash in there. So it's all lowercase, no spaces, but it's font dash size. And then the value is important as well. Let's try 18. But typically when you do the font size, you want to put px after that. I think it's for pixels. So don't just put 18, but put 18px, and then of course don't forget the semicolon there. Let's try that and see how it looks. Yeah, so it made our font larger. So obviously you could play with those values. You know, if we went to 24px, it'd probably start to get really big, but you can adjust those values until you got your page looking the way you want. I'm going to bump that back down to 18. So that one's pretty straightforward. Font size, right? That's the property. Value needs to have a px after it. The font face or the font type, or also called the font family, all those things mean the same thing, all right? Just the font type. So let's do that one next. So the style property for that is font dash family. But the way you use this one is important as well, all right? So I have font dash family, and I'm going to put one in that I know. But I'll talk about that in just a moment, all right? So I'm going to do Times New Roman, which actually may not look much different than the default. Yeah, it's probably not going to look much different than default. So let me do Arial. I'll talk about those font values in a minute. Yes, notice that changed the way our font looked quite a bit. So the style property is font dash family. And just like every style, you have colon space, the value, and then a semicolon. Let's talk about these values. So how do you know what fonts and what they are? The best thing I would recommend on that is open up a word processor. So like if I open up Microsoft Word, I can look at these different things and assign some of these, right? So Courier New would be a font family or font type that I could put in here. But that's also why I put that inside quotes, because Arial doesn't have spaces in it, but a lot of those font types are going to have spaces. So you really want to enclose your value for your font family inside quotes. And then, like I said, where do you get those values? You could use a word processor or something on your machine. Let's just try a different one just to see something a little bit more unusual. Let's try this Harlow Solid Italic. So I'm going to put that in here. Hopefully spell it right. So the spelling is very important, and I think even the capitalization is important, so watch out for that. Let's see if this worked or not. Yeah, so that's pretty funky font. You might want to be careful with that in a web page. Maybe your main title along the top could look like that. But notice I got that effect by putting that proper name there inside the value for font family. One more thing to be aware of that from a web design standpoint though. Not everybody is going to have this Harlow, whatever it's called, loaded on their machine. So this machine has it because I have Microsoft Word and it has one of those fonts on it. But since you're dealing with the web, somebody might view this web page from a different machine that doesn't have that font loaded in it. And if that happens, it's just going to default back to the default font. So you can't control your design completely, so just be aware that when you're using these specific fonts in your styles.